So, before stage 2, I decided to see how far and how fast I could climb in stage 1. Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are taking a look at a deck that I used to climb from dual level 3 to dual level 14 in the first stage of the World Championship qualifiers. Now, obviously, these aren't exactly the most difficult of levels, but I just kind of wanted to showcase some of these really cool duels that I had utilizing one of the decks that I haven't played in a long time, but Regenesis. Now, with the additional buff to Fenris that just happened recently, this deck got a pretty significant buff. So this is the deck that I ended up playing and that I ended up doing pretty well with. Now, obviously, I only played for 3 hours, and within those 3 hours, actually, I think it was less than that. Within those 3 hours, I climbed a little over 10 levels. So again, it's not a ton, to be fair, because a lot of those levels were like one win to get it out of the level. So it wasn't exactly a difficult task. But the point is, I just wanted to show you some cool duels. If you don't know how Regenesis works, I'm going to go over it real quick. Each one of their monsters requires you to have another monster either in hand or on field with 2500 attack or defense for you to then special summon it themselves. Now, I guess I should say, just as long as there is another monster with those stat lines, you could technically even special summon it if the opponent has a monster with those stat lines, which is why we're playing Lava Golem. All of them also are of various different levels of either 8 or 7, so some of the Kashtira cards can synergize with that, but the idea is that you utilize their effects, such as bouncing a card, negating, or banishing a spell trap, in order to put them into the graveyard during the opponent's turn. Then when they're in the graveyard, if they were sent there during the opponent's turn, you can then add them back to the hand. So they're kind of a regenerating loop, Regenesis, regenerating loop of monsters that you can consistently put into the hand. And it all centers around this card in particular, Archfiend. Archfiend can reveal another one of the monsters with 2500 attack or defense in order to special summon itself, then allowing you to search out one of your Regenesis cards. Things like Regenesis, Code, or even any of your actual monsters. And that's kind of the idea of the deck. Obviously, the Kashtira monsters pair pretty well with this because Unicorn can be searched off of Fenris, and Unicorn is 2500 attack. Pretty simple. We are also playing the Bestials for similar reasons. All of these also, while they're on the field, give you the ability to summon Warrior, Sage, or Dragon. We have one other Regenesis in here, that being Regenesis Lord, which has the ability on special summon it to set a trap, a spell trap from your deck. Then on top of that, it also has the ability to attack for 2500 or for 5k. So it boosts itself during the battle phase and can attack for 5000 attack points, which is quite significant. That's pretty much it. It does have a different summoning condition by requiring you to banish one of your face-up 2500 attack point. Sorry, it's basically a Regenesis monster, but if you have 2500 attack and defense, you can banish one of them to special summon this guy. Now, notably, that's not that big of a deal because both Code and Regenesis have the ability to not only do something on field, or in hand, I guess, but also in their grave effects also give you the ability to reborn either from grave with Regenesis or banishment with Code. Code gives you the ability to special summon it, but locks you from the extra deck for that turn and the next turn. And then Regenesis gives you the ability to search out or send to the graveyard a Regenesis monster. That's pretty much it. We all know how the Kashtira cards work. Fenris grabs Unicorn, and all of them have the ability to banish something face down, either a face-up card or a monster from the extra deck if the opponent does a monster effect. So there's that. We're also playing the one Birth and the one Wraithsoth, Birth being able to reborn and as a search target for the Unicorn. Then we're playing a whole bunch of hand traps and other such non-engines, such as I have one Valor in here just because I needed a 41st card, or a 40th card, I guess. This could be anything. We have the Maxi, we have the Fuas, we have Ash Blossoms in here. I should also be playing Baron, but I'm not, so oops. Regardless, we're playing the Bestials, as previously mentioned, just one Magnuma, one Druis, and one Baldrake. The 3 Lava Golem, as previously mentioned as well, for the 2500 defense stat line. We don't necessarily need our extra deck, so we're playing Pot of Extrav in here as well. I don't have the 3rd Super Polymerization, so I'm only playing 2. We have the Called By. You can also play Skill Drain because your monsters are just that high of an attack stat, and both Warrior and Dragon have the ability to tribute themselves to trigger their effects, which means that you can still utilize their effects. It's only Sage that you can't, so you can still fairly easily play under Skill Drain. And then we have the one Regenesis Birth, which can book one of your guys by sending a Regenesis to the grave, which then gives you the ability to add it back to your hand. Or during the opponent's turn, you can send it to the graveyard in order to reborn any of your Regenesis monsters from hand, deck, or hand, grave, or banishment. And then they send them to themselves to the grave during the end phase, allowing you to then add them back to the hand. As for the extra deck, it's pretty simple. Just super poly targets, some rank 7s, and then a few link monsters that mostly don't come up. So let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performs. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this duel was the reason I wanted to showcase this, because first and foremost, my opponent is playing Malice. I'm just gonna come out and say it. They're playing Malice, and they play it so poorly that I end up winning this duel. Now, to be fair, Malice, if I don't have any hand traps, there is probably no world, there is realistically no world in which I should be able to win once Malice does its combo. Unless it is played really poorly. Regardless of what I have in hand or in grave or whatever, realistically, I should not be able to win. However, that is not entirely up to me. So let's see how my opponent throws this. First and foremost, they're going to make one of the worst end boards you can possibly make here, because we're going to set the GWC, that's fine. And then we're going to go for the Code Talker at Ignister with nothing else. That's it. It's Code Talker, it's the White Binder, and it's Heart Scripter with no banished cards for them to utilize. They have 2 set cards, so they could potentially have something here, but we'll see. We do have the Regenesis Archfiend, which we did end up drawing, so that's nice. We're going to go for the Super Poly here. We're going to Super Poly away their Omni Negates to go for the Garura. And then out comes the GWC. GWC is going to bring back the Heart Scripter. That's fine. We're going to go for the Archfiend, which is met by Malice in the Mirror, which for some reason they're still playing. So that does get negated. They're going to then bring back the White Binder and banish some cards here. Note how they only banish a singular Dormouse as opposed to multiple cards. So there's that. We're going to go for the IP Masquerade, mostly just to draw a card. And then I'm going to Kaiju them. They're going to then once again go for the, they're going to go for the March Air, which they searched, and go for the Malice in the Mirror. Now, I do just attempt to go to combat here because we did draw the Fenris off of the Garura. Fantastic. This does force them, or not force them, but incentivize them to actually utilize the Heart Scripter, which is hilarious. And then they Nibiru me on the Fenris, which, like, theoretically is not a bad play, except for the fact that they have no follow-up. They have nothing, unless this card is MTP, which I don't know why they wouldn't have used that as opposed to utilizing the Nibiru. It's fine. Regardless, we actually have the ability to do something here because we can go for the Regenesis Code. I end up deciding to go for Warrior. Now, obviously, we've already activated the Archfiend, so it doesn't make sense to go for Archfiend. And Sage requires you to have another Regenesis card for you to send to the graveyard to activate the Omni Negate. So it was either Warrior, which can send itself to bounce a monster, or it was Dragon, which can send itself to banish a spell trap. So those were kind of my 2 options there. Cool. My opponent doesn't switch Nibiru into attack to go for the Warrior. That's not really that big of a deal because Warrior's just going to come back to the hand anyway. Cool. Anyway, we're going to draw for turn. We draw Birth, which is kind of okay, but my opponent just didn't have anything. They ended up searching, by the way, off of the... I forget what it was. They searched something off of the... Oh, they banished GWC off of the Quick Play spell, which then allowed them to search TB11, as opposed to banishing one of their monsters to search out a monster. They ended up searching out a trap. Likely due to the fact that they don't know how Malice works. Hilarious. Anyway, they do have the TB11. They go for it now, and immediately I'm going to book a card here. Imagine if they had done this on... Actually, it wouldn't have mattered. No, it would have, because had they done this during my turn, had they summoned it during my turn, they could have then just flipped the card face up and linked it off anyway. So, SpaghettiOs. Anyway, turns out they didn't do that, and now we have the ability to add back Sage. And this was a mistake. I shouldn't have gone for the Sage. I should have dumped Archfiend. I don't know why I didn't. It's just bad on my part. They do have the Roach, though. They drew Roach. So there's that. We're going to go for the code in draw phase. We're going to go for the Archfiend. Archfiend effect is going to get negated. That's fine. We still have both Sage and Warrior that are now live. So I got pretty lucky there. So we're going to go for the Sage. They're going to go for the Druidistorm. We're going to promptly negate it. And then at this point, we actually have Lethal on board because we could just walk into the one monster that they have and then walk in for well over Lethal because of the Nibiru token they gave us quite a bit earlier. Yeah. Good. I can't even say good game. Dude, that was bad. Alrighty, here we are going first this time. And, I mean, this is a pretty decent hand. We're going to start off here with the Fenris. We're going to grab the Unicorn, and then we're going to go for the code. We're going to go for the Archfiend here and use it to grab Regenesis. Regenesis is going to activate. We're going to grab the Sage. We're going to special summon it. Then we're going to banish our guy in order to grab the Birth. And then we're going to tribute summon both Sage and the Fenris so that we can grab up Birth with the Unicorn, the Cashier Unicorn. I attempt to activate the Birth to bring back the Fenris, but it gets met by Impulse, so I guess we're just passing here. My guess is that this is Malice. However, I am wrong. It's actually Lab. Cool. Good thing we have this Ash Blossom. I'm going to attempt to banish one of their cards from the extra deck. They elect to go for Songs of the Dominator on this, which I mean, I guess. I don't see the purpose of this, but sure. However, because they are activating Songs of the Dominator, which locks them out of hand effects, they do have to actually activate the Stovey Torby to not only pitch the rollback that's in their hand, but also just use its effect to set a guard. So they set the Big Welcome. They're going to grab Impulse, obviously, and they're going to start setting cards. They set an additional card. I book here just so that I can send a guy to the graveyard, which happens to be the Archfiend. And this is one of the instances where sending Archfiend actually should have been a different card because we already have the Archfiend and we draw another one, but we already have the Archfiend in the banish zone that we can reborn off of the code. So there's that. Anyway, my opponent's going to go for the Welcome Lab, and this is important. This is some important information, I should say. Lovely Lab says your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to your normal trap cards. So you have to respond with your Ash Blossom to the first effect that summons a guy, basically. Because if they summon Lovely, you just can't activate your Ash Blossom. So while, yes, technically it's worse to Ash the Welcome Lab here, you kind of can't do it in other ways. So there's that. Anyway, regardless, my opponent decides to pop the Unicorn for reasons I cannot explain. I do not know why that was the choice there, but alas, it's fine. I kind of wanted to go for the Birth to hopefully not have them hit Birth. Sounds really weird, but two things. There's a lot of cards that require like a Fiend to be on the field for them to activate or to resolve it. So being able to book the Fiend means that they can't do that. Like, for example, the Big Welcome in the grave. Things like Ghastly Glitch, etc. It's not like the most important, but being able to put it face down is nice. And then secondly is maybe they don't hit Birth because now I've used its effects, so maybe they're going to hit something else like Sage or what have you. Regardless, we have the Archfiend, so we're going to reveal Archfiend to summon the Archfiend. We're going to activate the effect of the Archfiend. They are going to activate the effect of the rollback to negate off of Songs of the Dominator. However, we can just Sage negate it. So there's that. Unless this was like Imperm, which I just figured it would be. It wasn't. They go for the Impulse on the Birth there. That's fine. We're going to go for the Regenesis. We're going to add to our hand the Dragon. We're going to special summon the Dragon. We're going to activate its effect. We're going to banish the Banquet of Millions. Who was expecting that? Certainly not I. Anyway, we're going to go for the Regenesis, which is going to reborn one of our monsters. We had the second one in grave. We're going to now go for the code to reborn our Archfiend. And at this point, we can just walk over the monster and proceed for lethal damage. Good game. Alrighty, and wow, Balatro hand. We're actually going first here. So that's pretty nice. We're going to start off here with nothing because Imperm. Okay, kind of sucks. I'm actually just going to normal summon here and then go into IP Masquerena and then activate code, which locks me out of utilizing the IP Masquerena. Oops. It's fine. We're going to go for the Regenesis Archfiend. We're going to grab Regenesis. We're going to go for the Regenesis. We're going to add to our hand Sage. And the reason I go for Sage is because I thought I would still be able to utilize IP Masquerena, because for some reason code says until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, you're locked out of the extra. I don't know why we put this restriction on there. Like, why would it not just be until the end of this turn? I don't know. Konami hates Regenesis. It's fine. But yeah, I just didn't realize it had that effect. I thought it was just the one turn lock. So I was like, oh, I'll make IP and then make the... It doesn't matter. Because guess what? My opponent is playing, I don't know, whatever this is. I elect to just not activate the Sage. There's not really a point to it. Because they're already locked out of the extra. So I'm like, okay, I don't really care. That's fine. What are they going to do? Kill me? And then I see, oh no, they might kill me. Okay. Yeah, they're going to add Albazoa. Sure, of course. They're going to activate Dogmatic Calamity, and they're going to summon it from the hand, the Albazoa, utilizing the extra deck. Okay. They're going to activate the Albazoa, and this card is hilariously bad. It does, in fact, say either you can force your opponent to send 2 cards from the extra deck, or sorry, for every 2 cards in your extra deck, send a card from your hand or extra deck to the grave, or return all Fusion, Synchro, and Link monsters you control to the extra deck, which, notably, I had one, so I just put the IP Masquerena back as opposed to milling half of my extra, which also probably wouldn't have mattered, but I still didn't want to do it. Anyway, I'm not really dead here. I do also get a draw card, which that's a pretty good one. So my opponent's going to walk in for a lot of damage, but not nearly enough. I guess had they put this one in attack position, it would have been closer, but that's fine. And of course, my Regenesis is regenerate, and we get the cards back, so that's great. They're going to click a whole bunch of buttons, and it's not going to matter because the only one that matters is this guy, and we have Ash Blossom for it, which means that it's actually not going to do anything. So they're going to activate the effect, and I'm going to Ash it, and great, fantastic. Now they just don't have that. Awesome. They also added the new Fleur-de-Lis, which, by the way, this card is actually pretty good. I've played it in Genesis format, and it's actually pretty solid. However, it does say, if a monster is special summoned from the extra deck, or sorry, if a monster is special summoned from the extra deck is on the field, then you can special summon the card. And if your opponent controls a Fusion, Synchro, or a Xyz or a Link monster with 2,500 or more attack, you can then also utilize the Dogmatica trap that you set, which is nice. Except for the fact that I'm just not going to go into the extra deck. I actually don't need to. I'm playing Regenesis. So we're going to reveal the Dragon. We're going to go for the Archfiend. We're going to grab Regenesis. We're going to go for the Archfiend. We're going to go for Dragon. We're going to go for Sage. We're going to search out Lord. Lord is going to banish the Regenesis Archfiend to grab the trap in Birth. Then we're going to reborn it off of the code that's already engraved to reborn it the Archfiend. Now we can go to combat and walk over pretty much everything. And this guy is 5,000 attack points during the battle phase, which means that we actually, yes, can deal with the Albazoa. So yeah, we just get to walk over the entire field here and deal a significant amount of damage. Not an insignificant amount. We're just going to pass the turn with the ability to banish a spell trap, to negate a card, to book a card, and have fairly decent follow-up, because anytime we would use any of these effects, they're just going to come right back to the hand. So pretty solid. And my opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes. A hilariously bad matchup for my opponent. They also elected to go second there, which was a choice. Look, I don't know why they decided to do that, but they did. It's a good game. All right, we're back with the deck, and honestly, this was mostly just an excuse to show you that first duel, as I previously said, but all in all, I think this deck is still pretty decent. I don't think it's fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think, well, okay, I will say, I've been playing a lot of control decks recently. Decks that are specifically centered around like a small resource loop, or kind of like slowing down the duels, not necessarily taking a big amount of actions, a whole ton of combos or what have you. And yeah, this deck fits right in line with that. It is pretty much the quintessential, like, summon some powerful monsters and pass on that. It's very easy to do a lot of that as well, and because of that, you end up getting to play like lava golems and what have you, right? I mean, a lot of games you just don't need your normal summon, so there's that. All in all, it's a very silly deck, but I don't think it's like great by any stretch of the imagination. It's just fun to play from time to time, so there's that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much appreciated, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye bye.